Hi, I'm John Hart and welcome back to Mr. America Hart. Today, I'm talking to you about Dorian Yates, six-time Mr. Olympia, and his training routine, blood and guts. Is it worth doing? Is it for you? Is it going to produce the muscle that it promises? Wow. Well, I'm going to break it down for you. First of all, Dorian, great, one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. Six-time Mr. Olympia, during his era, to borrow a quote from Lee Haney, and the quote is, "In my era, I'm happy to be one of the best bodybuilders of all time." That's Lee's quote as far as during his era. He likes to say it that way. Because when we compare bodybuilders from era to era, it's impossible to fairly compare them because they're not competing or living at the same time, generally speaking, in their peak. So, Dorian Yates, during his era, from the years 1991 or 92 when he won his first Olympia, straight through to 1998. Nobody dominated bodybuilding, professional bodybuilding, like he did. I mean, he was number one. And physique-wise, he made improvements the whole way through. Now, a lot of you are going to say certain things about his injuries or torn muscles and all of that. Fine. That did happen at some point in time, and it did blow a little bit of the symmetry. But undeniably, 1993, one of his best shapes ever, brought everything, the full package, and he was huge, like a dinosaur, they used to say, walking out on stage with muscle and shredded like no one's ever seen. More shredded than anybody else in the show. I mean, this guy, for being as big as he was, you know, he had it together. So he knew how to diet, was meticulous about it. But the real unique thing about Dorian that just seemed to kind of fly under the radar all these years, and I say fly under the radar only because it just hasn't hooked up with the general public and bodybuilders in general, is that his training was of a high intensity nature. His training was brief in nature. He only worked out 4 days a week for most of the year. 4 days a week. And I mean most of the year, even pre-contest. We're not talking about, oh, that was his off-season training. So 4 times a week leading up to a contest. So what did his routine look like? Well, in his books, Blood and Guts, and then the other one, Dorian Yates, A Portrait of Dorian Yates, A Warrior Story, Dorian details his workouts, and he liked a certain type of a split. He used to like day 1 to do shoulders and triceps, shoulders, traps, triceps. Day 2, he liked to do back and rear delts. Then he would take a day off. He'd come back day 3 and do legs. All legs. And then day 4, which would be the next day, day 3 would take off. Day 4 was legs. And then day 5 was chest and biceps. And that would end his week. He would take 2 days off and then come on back again, fully loaded, ready to go the following week to train. So, some aspects of his training. Well, Dorian believed in doing single working set workouts. Single, one set, one working set. Let's define working set. I want to be really clear about this one because there's going to be comments down below, and I love seeing them. I really appreciate it, but there's going to be comments down below for some of you who watch this video that Dorian did more than one set. Okay, a working set is defined as one, in Dorian's case, where you are training to positive failure at least. Okay? With each body part that he would train, whether he did 1 warm-up, 0 warm-ups, 3 warm-ups, as many warm-ups as is necessary for each body part or for each exercise, does not matter. The fact of the matter is he believed in one single working set, whereas most, the large majority of bodybuilders believe in doing multiple sets, hard sets, working sets. So clearly we've just defined that, okay? So now we know. To failure. Hard effort, working set, okay? Dorian, 1, only 1. And that was from the years of 1992 onward. Through his Olympia years, really, he switched to single set training. And that's what he would do. Now, he would do multiple exercises per body part, but single set per exercise, okay? I'll break down for you basically some of the aspects of the training during that single set. Yes, he would take it to positive failure, and then a little bit beyond. His thing was a couple forced reps, maybe a negative at the end of a set, you know, whatever it took to get to that muscle deep down and get those fibers that were failing to push a little bit beyond what they were used to doing. Now, some of you are going to cite that, well, Dorian had all his injuries all those years. Obviously, his training is no good. Well, not so. Not necessarily true. Dorian, you can watch the videos yourself. Some of his videos that he put out in the Blood and Guts series, those grainy black and white videos when he was, at his peak as Mr. Olympia, and it was after the bicep tear, but he still was training very, very hard. You'll see in that video series that, Dorian had a couple of exercises where he was getting a little ballistic, man. He believed in getting ballistic. He did not do super slow. He did not move the weights extra slow. He was deliberate, but explosive. And on some of those exercises, I gotta grab a towel here because, whoo, it's a hot day in Southern California over here. So, excuse me for wiping off the sweat. Whew, man. So Dorian, get me hot talking about this right now, huh? So Dorian would get a little explosive with some of his exercises. No doubt adding to trauma, micro trauma. Perhaps that's the one critique I would make about his training. I know that if you ask him today, I've seen some of his interviews, the only critique he makes of his own training is he says that he wishes that he would have gone only to positive failure in the lead-in to his contest, pre-contest, when he was on a severe diet. That he felt that training to positive failure would have prevented a lot of his injuries because most of his injuries happened during pre-contest prep, when he would be leaner, a little bit more tired, a lot of energy expenditure, and his immune system maybe not as good, and he believes that it left him open, more susceptible to injury. I could roll with that. I do. I agree with him on that. The only thing I would add to it is a couple of those exercises were kind of ballistic, and the micro trauma, that bicep injury, swinging the curls, those heavy bent over rows, the Dorian rows that he would do, with 300-400 pounds and exploding up with it, a lot of yanking on that bicep tendon, the tricep injury, the tricep elbow, the tricep tendon injury at the elbow, little explosive on some of those movements. So, I'm being nitpicky though. The workout that he actually did, I think, is phenomenal. I've used it many times myself. The exact split I've done that one many times, just like he did. I've also changed it slightly, for my own body and my own needs, but slightly only in the way of different groupings of body parts, a little bit, but not much. I've really, really enjoyed his workout. And Dorian was specific in his books. He details how, you should plan on taking a break when you start to stall, when progress starts to slow down. You take a break from training and then ramp up again. Maybe you take a couple of weeks training only with moderate weights. Maybe you take some active rest. He mentions things like this. So I'm convinced that the type of training that he did was very, very good. And I can tell you this much, he stood out head and shoulders above all of the professionals at that time. Now, if we say, oh, I know some of you are saying drugs. Well, that's not an answer. That's not an answer because you have to assume that all of them at that level have equal access to the same things. So that being the case, what are you going to say? His diet. Well, I can tell you, yeah, his diet was a little bit different. He ate more carbs than most of his counterparts. Most of his counterparts, they did not eat carbs like he did. Hot again. He ate quite a bit of carbohydrates in his diet, and he would reduce it as the show came along. But methodically, he was methodical. I use, as the best comparison I can think of, another very good pro at the time was Shawn Ray. Shawn Ray took second place to Dorian, one of those Olympias, and I can tell you the stark contrast between Dorian and Shawn Ray. Dorian, meticulous. He was counting grams of his protein, carbs, fats, calories, all of that. Shawn Ray never counted a thing. Okay, Dorian, progress year after year after year after year. Shawn Ray looked the same every year. After 12 years, he was what, 5-10 pounds heavier? Dorian must have put on 35 pounds in that same time period, tripling the progress. So you get my drift right here, right? You understand that Dorian was just a meticulous animal when it came to, his training, his diet, his approach during that time period. He's quoted recently as saying that he was living like a monk during that time period. So yes, he put everything he had into it. The training, getting back to the training, the routine itself. I can see 4 days a week training to positive failure and beyond. It's very challenging to do, at any age and any stage. If you're a super recovery type of an individual, you could do that type of training straight through for, 3 months at a time. But you're going to need to take a break after that and maybe train only to positive failure after that for a little while. Everybody else, 6 to 8 weeks training really hard that way, I have found it does improve your physique. I have found that I made great progress doing it. I liked it a lot. So going back to that time period all the way to this day, I've rotated that type of workout into my own personal schedule for myself. For the life of me, I don't understand how so many people who witnessed Dorian at his best, who witnessed him, as a 6-time Mr. Olympia, and to this day, they still shun his training. They still poo-poo it as if it was no good and didn't do anything. He's 6-time Mr. Olympia. He was that far above everybody else at the time. Living like a monk alone did not do that. He was training brutally hard. Watch the video series. Get the video series of him training with Leroy. Whew, man, animalistic. Just all-out assault in the gym. I was a trainer at Gold's Gym in Venice the entire time of Dorian's Olympia runs. I saw him myself when he would come to Venice to train. But let me not get lost here. The point I was about to make. When I saw all the other pros come and train at Gold's Gym in Venice, I can name you exactly that many people during Dorian's era, that many professional bodybuilders. That would be 0. I'm giving you a big fat 0 right here. That many who trained with the intensity, the fiery intensity that Dorian had. Maybe Lou Ferrigno would be as louder than Dorian. I say that with love, Lou, if you're watching this. But other than that, the effort given in training, I don't remember nobody trained as hard as Dorian. Even Dorian coming into the States and training at Gold's, which for him was probably a vacation, he still was training harder. It was post-Olympia, doing photo shoots. He still would train harder than the current pros of the time that were training at Gold's Gym in Venice, the mecca of bodybuilding. So I give it to Dorian Yates. His training, read his books. At the very least, get yourself a copy of Blood and Guts. It's worth having. At the very least. If you can't get that, the second book says it. The Warriors, Dorian Yates, the Portrait of Dorian Yates, A Warrior Story. Get that one. It breaks it down for you. If not, buy a consultation with the man. I believe that he has a lot to teach and you have a lot to learn from somebody like that. On top of it all, I'm thankful for him. I'm thankful that the training that he did on himself and now does on others, it still carries on. But I'm thankful that I can get something out of it and use it on myself as well as clients. So that's it for today. The kind of progress I would make, by the way, on that type of training was consistent, just like Dorian's training would be. Consistent. I was consistently making progress, consistently getting stronger, consistently seeing changes to my physique. I really like that type of workout. Now, you all know, that I was also trained as a Mike Mentzer guy and all that. Dorian, relied on a lot of Mike's principles as well. But within that scope, you can take his training, Mike's, and apply it to yourself. You can take certain aspects of it that make sense to you, and maybe later on more of it will. Just like Dorian's training, right? Some of his might not make any sense to you right now, but go and give yourself 6 or 8 weeks. Commit 6 or 8 weeks to training his style. You warm up as necessary and knock out that one all-out set. You might find you're making better progress than you ever made before. But you wouldn't know if you just shun the whole thing and blow it all out of the water, right? So that's it for today. Hey, listen, before you go, off to my left, if you're liking the videos that I run right here, off to your left, my left right now, It's going to be a little disc that pops up in the air next to my head. That's the subscribe button for my channel. Please give that a tap, won't you? YouTube will notify you when I have new videos pop up. Down below, off to your left, or if you're on a laptop, down straight below, you're going to find a thumbs up button right there. Please hit that thumbs up button. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. That's it for today. From my heart to you, John Hart, I look forward to seeing you next time.